All right, everybody. Today I have three very special guests with me. Today I am joined with Taylor Paur, Ethan Paur, and Conor Paur, who have all had made this amazing movie called By His Hand, which tells the story of two fundamentalists escaping a commune and finding out that the world is a lot more complicated than they had previously thought. Taylor, Ethan, Conor, thank you so much for being with me here today.
Of course.
Uh,
Hello. Thanks for having us.
oh, of course,
Thank
of
you.
course.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the introduction.
Oh, no problem at all. No problem at all. So, for those of you watching, Taylor Paur is the director, the co-writer, and producer of the film. Ethan is the co-writer and producer of the film, and Conor is the executive producer of the film. Now, this is a very, very intriguing picture because, from what I have been told, this is also not necessarily partially autobiographical, but a lot of it is taken from some experiences that some of you guys had growing up. And let's start with Taylor. What was the main inspiration behind By His Hand?
Who? Growing up in Utah. Growing up in Utah is kind of a strange experience. And I wanted to make a film that reflects something that was unique to me and something I knew. So I took some kind of like strangeness of the religion I grew up in, which was the Mormon religion, and just the people, and also the beauty of the state. It's very dear to me, very close to me. I was inspired to just make a unique, interesting kind of like cult thriller film, which is a genre I really like. Yeah.
All right. Now, Ethan, you co-wrote the script with Taylor. What were some of your inspirations behind this story as well?
Well, for this one, first of all, Taylor and I have been writing together for 12 odd years. We've been making movies, we've been writing together, we've been shooting things together. So we have a pretty solid rapport, a pretty easy working relationship with this stuff. The inception of By His Hand was that we made a short film version of By His Hand back in 2020, and it follows Fowler and a different version of Emma, but it stays with them on the compound. The short does, and so when Taylor and I decided we wanted to make a feature, we just thought it would be natural to expand the short into a feature-length film. And Taylor had this great idea of following these characters once they escape the compound and following them away from the compound. And I just thought that was a fantastic idea, and it would be a fun kind of like road picture, like adventure story. Yeah, it kind of wrote itself, in my opinion. It really, the characters themselves turned out to be the engines, Sam and Emma. They gave us a lot to work with. I would say that it was mostly the characters that were the engine for us. I can't put it really better than that.
And with the characters of Sam and Emma, did either of you two, Ethan, Taylor, did you guys find putting any of yourselves or any of your people that you know when it came to writing these two characters? Ethan, I'll have you go first.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that Sam was very cathartic for me to write. And I can't speak for Taylor, but Sam was very cathartic.
All right, Taylor?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that we write, I like to put a lot of myself into. I don't know if I could make a film any other way than having like personal empathy with the characters. Obviously exaggerated, but the film really, I like what Ethan said, that it's just very character centric. It's about a relationship. It's about friendship. It's about codependency, all of those things that we kind of like figure out as we're growing up and through trial and error, especially, growing up how we did in kind of like a more insulated environment. When we go out into the world, you're kind of refiguring out relationships with other people and what works and what doesn't as you go. And I think Sam and Em are a reflection of that for sure. Yeah, and I do relate with the character of Sam in a lot of ways, and I will echo Ethan's sentiment. It was cathartic to write this character specifically. Yeah.
And one of the big themes, other than religion, that is found within the confines of the story are themes of family, or rather, finding your family, a found family, however you'd like to interpret it. Now, it's very rare that we actually see stories on this level be told by, families themselves. I mean, there's a reason why this video is going to be titled "I Interview the Paur Brothers," but I mean, you have Taylor, who this is your directorial debut, is it not?
It is, yeah. I've been making short films, for probably 15 years, mostly with Ethan, and we've kind of just been incrementally building up to this feature film, which is my first feature film. Correct? Yes.
And look, well, I would like to know a little bit about, some struggles that you've had with, handling a feature on this scale. But before I actually get into that, you actually brought up something I was going to get into, which is, Taylor, you and Ethan have been, for the most part, making films together, at least according to your IMDb, for a good bit of time. But somebody who I wasn't able to find extensive knowledge of, at least in terms of film, was Conor, who actually, according to IMDb and according to any source I can find, this is actually your first credit in regards to any sort of film. Is that correct? As you do serve as an executive producer.
Yeah, where did this guy come from, right? No, I'm definitely, the odd man out in a way. It was really great to be a great experience to be able to do this with my brothers. I've wanted to do this, work with them in some capacity for so many years now. But yes, as you mentioned, I'm somewhat new to the film industry. I guess to give you maybe a little bit more background there. Hey, growing up, film was very instrumental. It was very kind of key to our family as a theme in terms of coming together, discussing things, and being able to just bond over stories that we loved. So it's definitely been something that's been in my DNA, my whole life. Um, you know, as I've kind of gone on my way, I didn't go kind of the way Ethan and Taylor did. I've watched them, I guess, from afar, right? As they've had really successful careers and they've become very just well known and respected in the Utah film industry. I've stood back kind of with admiration. So when they approached me with the project, I couldn't say no or couldn't say yes fast enough, just because it ticks so many boxes for me. I got to work with my brothers. Got to do something that has been, a goal and a dream of mine for many years, which is producing a film. It being this film was very special because it's just such a wonderful story, right? You read it, and just the way that it hit me in terms of that connection with the themes and the characters. I don't know how many times, reading or watching Sam, I was like, I've been that guy before, right? And I think that's that's something that really really impressed me, and I was really happy to be able to be a part of this project with them.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear, and there's always a first for everything, regardless of what kind of profession or what kind of job that you take. And circling back to you, Taylor, you've directed things before, but predominantly shorts. What were at least some of the surprises, let's go with that you found with this being your directorial feature?
the first day we started shooting, it was a surprise. You know, there was a moment of being there and doing it, and it's something that I've been working for so long, right? And being there with all of my friends. This crew was made with a lot of love, with friends that are like a local crew in the Utah community, a local film crew. A lot of the cast were my friends as well, working with my brothers. That first moment of this is happening was very surreal and beautiful for me. This film was made on a kind of shoestring budget, so the whole process was extremely challenging. We shot it in 11 days, and that's not a lot of time for a feature. So there was not a lot of time for kind of like trial and error. It was really just making a lot of decisions on the fly, and hoping that you don't regret those decisions in post 6 months down the line, right? It was really fun to work with just an elevated cast, right? In most of my short films, I haven't had the caliber of cast that I landed on this film. So working and collaborating with a more professional cast was really enlivening for me. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, as far as challenging goes, I had such a great support system. You know, like all of our department heads were so great. Everyone had full faith in me, and they really propped me up and made me feel good about it. So it was a team effort, and we all, I think, did great. And yeah.
You know, it's actually funny you bring up cast and crew. And, you know, as much as a good cast and crew can make for a wonderful film, as, you know, if everyone's on the same page, that goes a long way. But there is something that's rather interesting that I'm actually very surprised neither you nor Ethan has actually brought up yet. And that is a lot of the cast and a lot of the crew actually come from Yellowstone. And I mean, you had Chase Ramsey, Forey J. Smith, Steve Luna, and then on top of that, I think I even have you have Lance Clayton as a set decorator. You have Emerson Alvarez as the costume designer, Chris Copier as the first AD, Andrew Sierra as chief sound mixer. I mean, I gotta know, at least for Taylor and Ethan. Taylor, I'll have you answer first. Was your guys' work on Yellowstone, did that help you prepare for how you were going to tackle By His Hand? Taylor, I'll have you go first.
Yes, absolutely. I worked on Yellowstone for 4 seasons, so it was a big part of my life. I work in film production, so I was the production coordinator for seasons 1 through 4 of Yellowstone, which is kind of like an information central hub. I got to know all the crew. I got to know the cast really well. And Yellowstone was just such an important part of my life. And while I was doing Yellowstone, I was building relationships that I knew would work out for me down the line. Scott Schmidt, our production designer, was also on Yellowstone. And really Forey, who plays Lloyd on Yellowstone, who's like a big part of it, right? I called him and asked him if he wanted to be in this little movie I'm making, and he said yes without even reading the script, which was phenomenal. And just that alone made Yellowstone worth it for me, right? Lots of great people on that show, big show. I kind of saw how this mechanism works, right, on a very large scale for Yellowstone. So yeah, absolutely. It gave me a sense of like professionalism that I have always carried with me since working on it.
That's wonderful. And Ethan, I heard that you did uncredited work on Yellowstone as well. Did anything in regards to work on that show impact how you handled production from a producing angle on this?
That's funny that it's uncredited. Yeah, not nearly. I wasn't nearly as involved in the Yellowstone versus Taylor. I was actually I was an on-set dresser on Yellowstone for season 2. It was really fun. It was a really fun show. And what I would say is I mean, it would every show I've done, every position I've done in the film industry, it culminated in this movie. So absolutely, it had an effect. Being on a set of that scale, that caliber, with that caliber of people, yeah, absolutely. Not nearly as much as Taylor though. Taylor is the Yellowstone verse. He's the Yellowstone whisperer.
The
I
Yellowstone
got to get my
Whisperer.
credit on there. Uncredited. That's what it says. Uncredited.
That's the thing. It did when I got bits and pieces about your work. I tried looking
That's
more into
amazing.
Yellowstone. It just said you worked on Yellowstone, but I wasn't able to figure out under what capacity. So I do apologize on that angle.
No, that's great. That's great. It was really fun. It was a great time. It was a
You
great
got to
time.
add it yourself to the
Yeah,
IMDb.
I gotta get on there and credit myself. I
Oh,
was there.
do you have IMDb Pro? Do you shell out that 120.99 a year? Oh Lordy. That's my personal frustrations with it. But no,
Yeah, no,
it's
I don't. I don't have IMDb Pro myself. But it was
I'll
fun. I
write
loved Yellowstone. It was really fun working with those guys. And I don't think this show would have happened without Yellowstone. I'm very grateful for it. Grateful for, what it's done for the Utah film industry.
which I actually also wanted to get into because I know for the three of you, this, Utah is your bread and butter. That's your home state. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, shooting in Utah, especially on location for a feature like this, I'm actually wondering what the differences there are in shooting in a place like Utah in comparison to maybe a place like LA or Wyoming. And I want to actually ask this to Connor. I want to know what your perspectives are on this, at least from someone who's relatively new to this industry.
Yeah, no, completely new. So I have no basis for comparison.
I know.
But I will give you, what I think though. Look, from Utah originally, it's where I consider my home state. That's not technically true. I'm technically from Los Angeles, but yeah. So Taylor, to Ethan, I think was born in Utah, but no, I'll claim it. This is where we grew up. It's where our family is, and it's just been a great place, to shoot. I know that, working with the Utah film folks was a really great experience. Again, Taylor and Ethan, we really just leaned on their relationships for this. And I know that we, called in just a lot of relationships and favors, and we really owe the Utah Film Committee or Utah Film community, community probably too somewhere, but we really owe them, just for the success of this film coming out successful in the way that I think it has. So it was a great opportunity and great experience for me to navigate that, and then also look to highlight Utah, to highlight my home, and give people a glimpse of it is something that I'm proud to do. It's a beautiful place. Our DP, Trevor, he just shot it so beautifully, and I think that it will really represent the state well. So excited to be part of it. Wish I had more of a basis for comparison for you, which I don't have, but I'll give you, all the glowing reviews for working in Utah.
No, and I know it was a little unfair to throw you under the bus like that, but I
Yeah,
just,
good.
for somebody who's so new and fresh-faced, I actually do kind of want to hear at least your perspective on something like this because, it's, one day you're working 9 to 5, next thing you know, your brothers are like, "We're making a movie, get over here." All right, I guess I'm
Yeah,
going. Um,
I will say about that. Look, I think, and this translates to a lot of different. If you've got experience doing something, right, likely those skills translate to something else. So I think that it was a strength for us, having a group of individuals who had a lot of industry experience, and then somebody who didn't have a lot of industry experience, right? I think that maybe my views were fresh, from a lot of from a lot of angles and perspectives. Not necessarily on the creative front, that definitely was more Taylor and Ethan's department, but producing an independent film is a very challenging and stressful thing. And I think that, my approach to problem solving and all of these things, I hope was able to add value to the film in that way. So I think it was a positive thing coming into the industry as an outsider.
No, and that's great because, one thing I will say about this film is that it is definitely made with a lot of love and passion. And I really do respect films that you can definitely feel have an artistic value and voice to it. And moving back a little bit, I would like to go to Ethan in regards to shooting in Utah. What was that like? How did that make you feel? Were there any challenges? Just kind of that umbrella question in regards to film in Utah.
Man, filming in Utah, that's a great question. To me, this movie, the story, the characters, the whole thing, the conception of it, it's so inextricably linked to Utah and baked into Utah that I couldn't imagine shooting it anywhere else. Like, I don't, if Utah wasn't part of the equation, we wouldn't have had these stories in our heads. We wouldn't have gone through some of the things we've gone through that inform the experiences. As far as like the logistical things, as we've said, Taylor and I have worked in the industry here for, I think, 14 years now. And so we have some pretty deep relationships with the film commission, which made it very lovely. They made it very easy for us. We've made ourselves very familiar with the landscape and the sets. Like, Taylor will tell you all about this, but during the writing process, Taylor would scout these locations out. He would drive around northern Utah for weekends, and he would just drive and find these places and let them stew in his imagination. Like the place where you see the gravedigger, so it's so interwoven with this. Utah is working on films, working on documentaries. Like, we got the location for the farm from working on a documentary about the Great Salt Lake. Sorry, not the farm, the commune. But it's hard to overstate how important Utah is to this. It's such a Utah thing, and we hope to do our Utah filmmaking community proud with this.
That's really sweet, Ethan, honestly. And I've talked with people before, because I've spoken with people that have worked in places like Colorado, Wyoming, believe it or not, Oklahoma, Vermont, places that you would never expect there to be thriving, or maybe not thriving, but passionate film communities. There's places like that all over the country. And you really never hear about places outside of California, New York, and Georgia. So to hear that Utah has a very passionate and even slightly bustling film community is very heartwarming, because it just shows that even in today's industry, there are still people with passion that want to see these stories get made, to get their hands dirty, and do their stories proud. And moving along, I would like to throw that last question over to Taylor. I would like your perspective on, Utah shooting difficulties, or just better yet, broad question, Utah and film.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's where I grew up, and I always wanted to make movies. I probably decided that I wanted to make movies and be a film director in 12 or 13 years old. Right. And I grew up around here, and I've always kind of had an eye for like just interesting locations, and locations that I get a vibe from. Right. So like Ethan said, what I would do when we were writing this and before we were writing this, Well, we shot the short film in 2020, and we shot this in 2023. So in between that time, we were kind of working our way towards this film. So we had some years to kind of like lock in what we were doing. But I would just spend hours upon hours driving around northern Utah, putting on music for a vibe that I wanted to see, and just finding these really like beautiful, desolate, remote locations that made me feel a certain way, that impacted me. And it just came very natural because I'm so familiar with the state, right? I think we showcase a lot of places in Utah that you don't see in a lot of films that are shot here. And I think that it's going to be really fun. I mean, Utah is one of the most beautiful states on earth, in the country, right? And I think our film did a good job showcasing that. I'm excited for everyone to see it, but I'm really excited to see locals see it and, be like, oh, I know that place. I know that place, as far as the challenge goes, our crew may not have loved, a lot of our locations were out there, right? So we would drive an hour to get to set, work, drive an hour home. But it's worth it. That's part of filmmaking, right? You have to like get to those far out locations and do what works for you. Yeah, but I love Utah. It's a beautiful place. I'd like to make more films here. Just need to find some more locations.
And pardon me for wanting to, inflate y'all's ego for a second, but there are truly some wonderful landscape shots and gorgeous bits of location that you find here, especially one that's outside what looks like either a steel mill or some sort of oil refinery, which, that was a gorgeous shot to begin with as well. And I do think that for those of you who will watch this film, By His Hand does do at least the looks of Utah justice. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous looking movie with some truly wonderful bits of scenery. Now, moving along, I actually do want to tackle more of the intent behind elements of the film because it does deal with religion in a very personalized way. And it has both anti-religious themes as well as pro-religious themes that are handled very gingerly and carefully throughout. And, the difference between what is on screen versus what is intended is sometimes a little here or there. But I would like to actually know what the intent was behind the making of this movie, whether that be if you wanted to send a message, tell a story. I'd like to know what is it that you either intended to make or what it was that you're hoping audiences will take from it. And Taylor, I would like for you to answer this first.
Yeah, there's a lot to get to with that. There is religion baked into it, right? That's something that's been very central to us in our upbringing, as well as the community here, right? It's very largely Mormon populated. With that said, we never set out to make this film anti-religion. I wouldn't consider myself anti-religion at all. I do feel like there's certain power dynamics that come with certain theologies that could get really toxic, and if wielded by the wrong person that's charismatic, it could become a very dangerous thing. And I am interested in that. You see it with all types of cult leaders, right?
Right.
Is the intention for me? I never set out to like send the message to anybody. I don't want to make films that feel like they have a message, right? How we approach this was just from a very personal mindset, right? We started with Sam and Emma, just leaving something that they thought they knew and kind of like venturing off into the unknown. And the story just kind of took off from there. I think if there's any sort of intent that we have with it, it would just be the power of kindness and community.
and just self-empowerment, I guess. Understanding that you are, it's hard to I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about like any sort of message that the film has, because I hope the audience figures that out on their own, right? And they have their own interpretation of it.
Well, of course, and by the way, if I had misstrewn my words, I would like to apologize. I'm saying that there were themes that I noticed throughout. I'm not saying that you guys' were intention was religion or anything like that. It's just these were things that I noticed. I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. So on that note, I would like to at least apologize on that front.
Oh no, it's fine. I may have gotten off track with that.
But no, you did bring up a good point, as there are certain elements of control and belief that were very integral throughout it. And I do think that while you may not see it in terms of the form of anti-religious, you are definitely more on the lines of, hey, this is what power and control can do to people, rather than saying any certain guidelines is necessarily evil or bad. And I think that it's a very, very nuanced sort of perspective that I think we should be exploring more often. But then again, if I go down my path, I'm going to start talking about your guys' movies, and that's not what I need to do here.
I love that though. See, I hope that when people watch this, they do, come up with how they interpret Fowler and his extreme possessiveness and control, right? There's so much entitlement that comes with that too, right? And I think we speak on that. He feels entitled to his land. He feels entitled to his family and his people, and it's just the control he wields really ends up spinning him out in the end, right? But yeah, that's certainly baked into it. Is the theme of control with Fowler and what that means.
Interesting. And by the way, for those of you that don't know, right before we started doing this, I actually got into a conversation with these three about Fowler, and I hope you guys get a chance to watch the movie, because Fowler is truly a wonderful character. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's fucking evil, but like he's you'll understand when you watch it. He's such an entertaining character to watch unfold on screen. But anyway, I'm moving away from that.
Shout
Ethan.
out to that's Steve Luna, and he's a damn gladiator and a good guy, and he's a fantastic actor. So gotta give him credit there.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. I'll quickly say Fowler was that character was the catalyst for the making of this film, is seeing that type of person exist, just unchecked power, right? Kind of like making your own offshoot, spin-off theology. It happens pretty often where we're at, and I've always just been very fascinated by that. And Fowler is a great character that I love to watch, and he makes me laugh a lot. But he's also, like you say, an evil man.
He's a very, very evil man. And no, but before I go on with some of my own diatribes, Ethan, you had a large stake in the writing of this movie, and I was wondering, what were some of the intentions or messages that you either are hoping audiences would take away, or stuff that you wanted to approach from your angle, from your perspective? I'd like to hear that.
Wonderful question. Thank you. Let me think about that for 2 seconds. Okay, I've thought about it.
That was 1 second, you liar.
Was that 1 second, or was that
That was
two?
just 1 second. How dare you?
So I think to reflect what Taylor said, I think our approach is, I think it's easy to veer into obnoxious territory when you approach something and you want to throw a message. So we tried to keep it internal. We tried to reflect our own experiences. And for my part, I co-wrote this with Taylor in a point in my life where it was an opportunity for me to stop and reflect on my journey and where I've come from in my life. Like I came out of this religion. I came out of the aftermath of the religion. For me was it was a long journey. I was raised Mormon, then I came out of it, and it was scary for me. It was scary coming out of religion. It's scary coming out of the confines of that place you were born into, and it was scary. And I feel like I lost my way for years and years and years. And upon writing this, I was in a place where I felt like I'd come into some beautiful safety and rest and peace and community. And I was reflecting in my life when I wrote this about how beautiful that can be. Like the beauty of just like rest and peace and kindness between strangers. And whoever watches this movie, they'll know what I'm talking about without spoiling it. But in the face of all of Fowler's talking, he has his religion, he has his God, he has his symbols, you know. But we kind of cut through that with Emma. We kind of get her to a place where she finds peace and she finds goodness. And so, without spoiling anything, I think that's what I wanted to put into it. That was my kind of energetic transmission into it. Was Taylor said this a while ago. He said that these things don't have to be scary, you know, like belief and spirituality and community. They don't have to be scary. And so often it is. Like in the movie, we see it, this very scary version of it. And then we see these characters through trial and tribulation. They fight their way through muck and they find themselves in a place of peace. I think that's, if there was a packageable intention, that would be mine. Because we need that, in my opinion.
Holy shit. Okay. Wow. That actually was really beautifully said, man. Wow.
Thanks.
No, you're right. No, it's religion, at least, like I said, I think I grew up Jewish, so the way I've seen religion is a little different, but I've never once ever considered religion to necessarily be something that should be scary. It should be something that brings communities together, and it should be a celebration of life rather than a means of control, which, you know, Taylor has also put that beautifully within the confines of the aspects of movies that he himself has touched upon. So, you know, it's very clear for those of you that watch it that Ethan's own personal take on the movie is very felt through characters, especially like Sam, who has a bit of a hard time not necessarily leaving the religion, but leaving that mindset that was very much ingrained into him. And now, well, kind of like a lost puppy, he doesn't really know where to go. But I digress on that point. Connor, I actually want to bring this point to you. What are some of the hopes that you think audiences should take away from it? Or rather, what are some intentions that you may have put into the movie? One or the other. I'd like to hear your take on this as a whole.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think you know, from my perspective, watching the film, I certainly take away you know, things that are very, very personal, right? And I think that you know, myself being close to the filmmakers, right? I think that you know, a lot of the experiences that they're, you know, in some way reflecting in or showing in the film, I feel very, very close to in a real way. I think everybody that approaches the film will, you know, see it through the lens of their own experience. And I think that they will take away the themes that they think, you know, are most important to them. And I would echo what, you know, Taylor and Ethan have been saying the whole time. It's just, it's leaving something that you've been dependent on maybe your whole life, that you think is all-consuming, all-powerful, and having the courage to get away from that and start your own path. And just the confusion and the chaos and just, the craziness that can feel like. I think that's just a very relatable journey for a lot of people on some level, right? Maybe that's not leaving a religion, in such a literal sense, but just it's finding your way and like Ethan said, coming to that place of peace, or coming closer to that place of peace, coming to a place where you can continue your journey to that place of peace. Is what I certainly take from it, and I hope that others do. But again, I wouldn't want to put any labels on anything or constrain anyone.
Well, I mean, if I can play a little bit of devil's advocate here, as much as an audience's takeaway in a very neutrally subjective manner is important, I do believe intent as well as purpose behind the filmmaking perspective is just as equally as important. We can have these discussions on separating the art from the artist, intentional versus non-intentional. But at the end of the day, what is important is what are the filmmakers either A, trying to say, B, trying to put in, or C, trying to at least convey. These are all subjects that fall under the same umbrella that provide equally different answers. For example, maybe Taylor was hoping for something a little more intimate and raw. Ethan, you probably were trying to think of something a little more passionate and very personal. Conor, your contributions maybe have fallen along the lines of a more broader, grander messaging. The fact is that film is a collaborative effort with a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And ironically enough, you all, despite coming from a very similar background, it does seem at times you all have your own stamp that you're trying to put on it. And I believe that despite those different cooks in the kitchen, all those ingredients have made for a very real sort of film that I don't think you can, that I think you seldom get anymore, And I wholeheartedly believe that when it comes down to it, I think you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have a level of intent while also leaving the door open for levels of discussion, which I think speaks to the level of craft that is put into the film as much as it is how you observe it as well. Now, moving a bit away from that, I actually do want to at least start going a little more towards a jovial perspective. We got a little too deep into discussion here, and I'd like to kind of kick things up a little bit with just a couple more like a little bit of fun aspects. Like, Taylor, this one's for you. Considering this was your directorial feature, I'm sure there were, as much as I would like to know, what were some of the things you hiccuped on? I actually would rather like to know. You said the biggest surprise was the first day where you're looking around and you're like, oh, this is actually happening. But what was your actual, what was your favorite moment when making this movie? If you were to disclude the surprise at the beginning.
It's hard to choose. Yeah, I have a few. I have a few that just stick out. You mentioned that shot at the oil refinery. That was our last shot of the film, and we moved there from a location that was about an hour away. And shooting in November, there's not a ton of daylight, right? So we had a whole company move. We got to that location with about an hour to shoot. So everyone was running. Energy was high. We had 2 takes to get it. And there's no better feeling than everyone scrambling and doing their own thing to make this one like image work. It's so special when that's pulled off, and you just feel like such a sense of community. And for that to be the last shot, right? Like, we shot until the sun was gone and we got what we needed. And there was such a sense of accomplishment with that, and such a sense of pride with that, that we just ended it on a good note and we set out to do what we wanted to do. I'm very proud of that. Also, my father was in this film for a moment. He plays a flute man, the guy playing the flute in the forest during the ceremony, and having him be on set was a very full circle moment for me and probably all of us. My dad was a filmmaker in the 90s himself, and I think it was really special for all of us to have that moment together. And my mom was on set for that moment, and my sister was, and it just felt so comfortable in that moment, and it felt like I was exactly where I needed to be.
Well, that's honestly really wonderful to hear, and also the fact that that oil refinery shot was the last one in the movie. I mean, holy moly! I mean, for those of you who have watched it, you'll understand why that shot is such a wow moment and why that scene is such a wow moment. But that's a spoiler. We don't do that here. But no, that's a really interesting story to hear, Taylor. And moving along, Ethan, similar question, whether that be, whether that be on set or development, but let's focus, how much of you was on set for most of the shoot?
Oh, the whole time. I was there the whole time. Okay, so I have two separate answers. There was so Taylor and I wrote this on my couch in my little apartment in Salt Lake City. He would come over. This is kind of our writing process. Like, we'll write something 2 to 3 hours a day. We'll make some tea. We'll write on my couch. It's very lovely and pleasant and fun. We'll do that. And we went off and made it, right? And then all the work was put into it, all the tears and the traumas and the things and the money and it was hard and it was rigorous, but all that time passed. And then I had this moment when the movie was done where we had the movie on my laptop or on his laptop, I can't remember, on that same couch where we had written it. And that was just such a moment, man. That was just so crazy for me. Because I feel like the finished product, the movie was remarkably true to the script. It was thematically and like what came out. The actors made it better. They made the dialogue better. They bolstered it, but it was very faithful to the script. We didn't veer much from the script. So seeing the manifestation of the story that we wrote on this couch, seeing it several years later on that same couch, that was such a moment for me. It was just magical. As far as like production, I would say I really liked the Josh's house. I really liked filming the kind of like the scary drug house, like the meth den that they find themselves in. Dave Martinez, who plays Josh, was just like he lit our set up. It was such a lesson in what a talented actor can do to your set. It was just like this electric current. He was just making everyone laugh. He was just blowing us away with his takes and his like ad libs. It was just amazing. And I think that was my favorite day on set.
Oh, look, by the way, that whole sequence is just a meh. Oh, all right. Anywho, Connor, same question. Favorite moment, whether that be a development aspect or whether that be a production aspect, just what was your overall favorite moment about making this movie?
Yeah, mine was, I think, a little bit different than these guys. I was a bit of a tourist on set. I wasn't there the whole time, but I did kind of come and see the wheels turning, and it was a fantastic. It was just fantastic to see. I think my favorite
moment from the whole experience was, very shortly after we had decided that we were going to do this, and we started putting it together. Taylor, Ethan, and I just had a really awesome text message conversation when we were deciding, okay, who do we want to be as a production company? What are our values, right? And at that, during that time, it wasn't just about what do we want to convey as artists, what kind of art do we want to put out there, but how do we want to behave as leaders of the film? Like, what's important to us? What are our boundaries? How do we want to treat people? What are our non-negotiables? And I think as we kind of talked through how do we want to do this, right, in a way that we feel proud of, in a lot of different respects, not just an artistic respect. As that came together, it just felt really good. And then I think throughout the process, there were definitely times when we were making decisions where we said, well, let's go back to our values that we established up front. And when we did that, decisions became a lot more clear, right? So that was just a really great moment for me to be able to go through with these guys.
That's so sweet. And honestly, listening to all of you talk about making this movie and how deeply personal it is, as well as, collaborating as a family, I am so invested in seeing not only how well this movie does, how it resonates with people, but I actually am kind of excited to know where y'all are gonna kind of go from here. I mean, your talents for deeply personalized stories, I don't think can be understated. So I guess I'll get to my last question, which is what I normally ask a lot of filmmakers. It's kind of a two-parter, or choose one or the other, but I'll let you decide. It's either what's your next project, or if you were given a blank check, what would you make and why? And to that, I will have Taylor answer first.
Well, I think those two coincide. Me and Ethan are working on something that we're very excited about, that brings a lot of the heart and spirit, in personal relation, to a story that is much bigger. I don't want to speak too much on the story, but we are bringing, like, I'm a big fan of fantasy and kind of like more mystical kind of things. So I would love to bring some sense of like grandiose and fantasy and adventure to our personal journeys. And I think that's kind of the lane that we want to be in, is the personal journey, spiritually and physically, right? Having your characters go through hell and back, and seeing how they changed, and what it's done to them, and what they take from it. I hope we get a blank check for it, because it's going to cost a lot of money. But I know that I'll continue to make movies with these two. It feels woo-woo, but it feels meant to be. And there's nothing I would rather do than make movies with my brothers. I mean, come on. It's a special thing. And I think we're going to continue to do it. And we're going to keep making films that have heart and intentionality, and a lot of fun as well. A lot of fun.
No, and that's that one. That's a wonderful answer. Glad to know you were able to put two and two together. And I look forward to seeing that, and hopefully talking with you all about it when that movie gets closer down the pipeline. Now, to Ethan, I will give you the same question. And now what I'm wondering is, will you give the same answer?
Similar. Yes. Similar answer. There's something that Taylor and I have been writing. I just actually finished a big rewrite of it just recently. And as he said, I think the things that excite us are the where we want to be, or these. I mean, come on, like Taylor and I, like I don't know about Connor, but the Fellowship of the Ring, man, like that, just like the character centric adventure that feels like it has a big heart, that feels like you could bring these characters into your living room and draw inspiration from them, and you want to be their friends. And that's what we want to do. We want to make really personal movies that feel timeless and mythological but modern at the same time. I think that's where we want to be.
Oh,
I think yeah, so I hope we can get some money to make this thing. I mean, it's always a zigzaggy road in film. We're gonna do well, what has to be done. But I really want to make this movie. I wish I could talk about it. I want to, but I feel like I should.
no. It's a matter of like, I want to talk about it, and then you just look off to the side and you just see like glaring eyes. You're like, but I think for the sake of my safety, I mean, for the sake of the movie, I think I'll keep. I think I'll keep
Yeah,
that to
yeah,
myself.
yeah. It's cool.
Man,
Thanks,
well,
man. Thanks for asking.
hey, no problem. I always love hearing about what's going on inside, filmmakers' heads, and there's always that excitement that comes from just like, I'm gonna make this and it's gonna be so good and I can't wait to share with people. It's like a kid trying to show his crayon drawing to his parents, hoping that they'll put him up on the refrigerator.
That's kind of
Uh,
what we are for the world to the world. We're just trying to show our crayon drawings to the world.
Yeah, I do want to add really quick. The blank check question is funny to me because when we wrote this film, we did want to make an adventure. We wanted to make something character centric, but we also knew very well, we were very conscious of the budget constraint, right?
right.
And so approaching our next projects, we're trying to not even think about that, and we're like, what can we do unleashed, right? And I think that it's beautiful to have constraint. I think it makes for good art. But in the writing process, we're just trying to eschew that a little bit and just think about like, what movie do we want to see? What would be fun if there was no budgetary constraints? And I think that's it's an exciting process. And Ethan and I came up with something pretty fun. So.
Well, once again, I look forward to seeing what that is because I'm just always a fan of seeing creators create. Now comes the most peculiar one that I've been looking forward to, which is Connor. I know with this movie in particular, this is kind of your first forte into film, and I can't.
It's Bruce.
I'm sorry. I just saw a dog walk into frame on Taylor's screen here. Taylor, are you
That's
going
a
to
dog.
introduce it?
Yeah, I was talking, but I was on mute, of course. Yeah, this is Bruce. He pops into frame every once in a while. He makes a guest appearance. Say hi, Bruce.
What?
He likes
Yeah.
He matches the background photo very well.
Yeah.
It's almost as if he could be the foreground in that photo.
Oh Lordy! Oh right. Sorry, I'm supposed to be conducting.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Boy, Bruce. I'll see you soon.
Dog cameos are the best.
Dog cameos are in fact the best, but no. To Connor, I bestow upon you that same question.
So yeah, that one's easy for me. I would love to someday make a long form series about the beginnings of the Mormon Church, how it started in upstate New York, about the founder Joseph Smith, who is just such an interesting, polarizing character, and just watching that story and how it grows into what it is today, and just looking at all the kind of interesting, weird nuances and stories that happen along the way. That I've wanted to do that for a very long time, and I think it would be just a great experience.
Well, no, I look forward to seeing that as well. And on that note, I would love to thank all of you for being with me here today. Taylor Paur, Ethan Paur, and Conor Paur. Their film By His Hand releases on TV on demand on April 17th, right? April 17th. And with that, thank you all so much for being with me here today.
Thanks, Noah.
Thank you. Yeah,
No
you can
problem.
catch it on Amazon on the 17th. Thanks for having us, Noah.
No problem. Take care.
Okay.